Of course. Hold on, guys. Sorry if you're seeing some behind the scenes stuff really quick. I don't know why OBS has been acting up the past couple of weeks. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video and a live stream with On Point Politics. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Electoral College and our discussion for the 2024 presidential election cycle. Make sure, guys, if you can hear us, make sure to type in the chat just to make sure if all the audio is like all good. If you guys can type just to make sure, we would greatly appreciate it. And On Point, just really quick, go ahead and introduce yourself to chat for those who don't know who you are.
Hey guys, it's Gold Crown Politics here. I have a channel on YouTube. You can go and check me out. On Point. Thanks for having me on the live stream.
All right, of course, no worries. So, guys, if you guys could hear, type in the chat if you guys could hear Gold Crown. I just want to make sure this is working because for whatever reason, OBS has been giving me big problems lately. I don't know why. like whatever I see in OBS is not what gets displayed on YouTube for some reason. Like the way I have my screen positioned, it like whatever I have on OBS, I have to like display it weird so so it looks normal on YouTube. Like you saw really quick how like the right side of the screen kind of like looked black or whatever, like it kind of had like a black bar. I don't see that on OBS like at all. Like I literally don't see that. And so I'm trying to like edit this really quick just to make sure it's like good on everybody's end. Let me see if it looks right now. I'm too quiet. I shouldn't be too quiet because I'm at 9.5 decibels now. I should not be too quiet at this point. Guys, while we wait to kind of set this up, make sure to go ahead and hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel down below. Make sure to go ahead. I'm going to pull up. Okay, now it should be good. I just saw it. The thing is the stream is like delayed, so it always takes forever to pick up. But make sure, guys, if you guys are interested, make sure to go ahead and please donate to the Michigan and Pennsylvania poll crowdfunding. We're going to find about 750 registered voters in each of these states, Michigan and Pennsylvania, for us to conduct our own polling there. So make sure to go ahead and please make sure to donate if you guys are able to as well. I'm sorry if I'm out of it, guys. I'm like kind of sick right now. I'm just trying to not really fall behind content. Editing videos has been slightly difficult lately, but I appreciate the support anyway. But guys, if you guys can chip in, please make sure to go ahead and donate. I would greatly appreciate it. And so now me and Gold Crown essentially going to go back and forth on these blank states for the 2024 presidential election as of right now. And Gold Crown, I'll have you kind of start off with your logic first, and then like we'll pretty much go from there.
Sorry, the screen is kind of lagging.
What do you
Oh,
mean
I
it?
see it. I see it. Okay.
Yeah. Just go ahead
Um,
and kind of talk
okay, I'll
about
start.
your like your take on like the national popular vote and like what's kind of going on with that so far.
Yeah. So currently in my popular vote model, Trump is up by 8 percentage points. So my model takes into account the polls from RCP. I go back 1 month in the polling data, and Trump is he's up about 3.6 points going back a month. In the current aggregate, he's actually up higher than that. He's up by like 5 in RCP, but he's up 3.6 right now in the 1 month polling. And then in 2020, the polls vastly underestimated Trump back in 2020 against Joe Biden. So he's actually up by 8 percentage points in my popular vote model. And that is just a huge swing from 2020 because Joe Biden, he won the popular vote by 4.5 percentage points. And so that is just a massive swing. It basically massively opens up the map for Donald Trump. He's basically turning the traditional swing states, like those in the Rust Belt and the Sun Belt, he is turning those into likely victories, and he's actually opening up the map. He's seeing like deep blue states being competitive, like Colorado, New Jersey. It's toss up on my map. States like Virginia as well, New Hampshire. They're very competitive, and so Trump, he's just seeing a massive expansion of the map. And so I'll go through a couple of these states here. So let's start with the Pacific Northwest. So I currently have Washington and Oregon both as likely Biden victories. I think I have Washington at, I want to say like 9 points, and Oregon's at about 7. Um, Biden, relatively speaking, is doing the best with white voters if you examine the crosstabs. Um, and so, yeah, those are for those states. And then let's do Nevada. Nevada, I have as a likely victory for Trump. I have it at about 12 points. He's doing really, really well with the Hispanic working class. He's winning over those voters substantially, especially from 2020. He made gains with Hispanics 4 years ago by about 8 points nationally, but he's making exponential gains with them this election cycle. So Nevada is a likely win. Arizona, I have at about 8 percentage points. I know in your election forecast on point, you have Arizona as close to that. I have it at about 8 points for Trump. New Mexico, I have as lean for Trump at about 2 points. Similar to Nevada, he's winning over a lot of working class Hispanics. Colorado, that's interesting. I have that one as 3 points for Biden. I know that you're less bullish on Colorado on point, but I have Colorado at 3 points, just 3 points for Joe Biden. He's Trump is actually winning over a lot more of the white college educated in the crosstabs. If you actually examine the shifts of the white college educated voters, he's actually winning a lot more of them than expected. And so Colorado, I think, is going to be closer than expected. And let's go to Minnesota. I have as lean Republican, just like New Mexico. I have it at about 1.5 or 2 points for Trump this election cycle. Now let's go to the Rust Belt. Those I have as all likely for Trump. So Wisconsin is about 7 points. Michigan is 8 points. Pennsylvania is also 8 points as well. Um, Virginia, let's go there next. I have that at about 1.5 or 2 points for Trump, just like Minnesota. That one, Biden won it by 10 points in 2020, but he's just expanding the map. I mean, in a state like that, you have a lot of black voters, and we're going to see a massive swing among that group in that state. And I think Youngkin as well will also play a role. His endorsement of Trump will also help him in the state. North Carolina, I have as likely, as well as Georgia. North Carolina is about 13 points for Trump, and Georgia is about 12 in my election forecast. New York is about 6 points for Biden, so that's a likely victory. It's getting pretty close to the 5 point mark. That would put it in a lean territory if it goes under five. I have it at about 6. My understanding is you have it at about 7.
Yeah,
And the
that's like I
polls
have it.
show that it.
My average now that we updated the popular vote, my model actually has it at 6.4 percentage points. So actually pretty close to what you have it as of right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely getting closer. I mean, if you examine the crosstabs, like Trump is literally gaining like with the groups that are most heavy in New York. So he's gaining the most with non-white voters. The state also has a lot of Jewish and Muslim voters. I know that I've said this multiple times on my channel. Maybe your viewers haven't heard about this, but Jewish and Muslim voters, there are some polls showing that those two groups specifically are trending massively to Trump. Now, I think that we don't have like adequate polling of those two groups, so we don't have like a good sample that would show exactly how much those two groups are going to move. But in the state of New York, it also applies in New Jersey. Muslim and Jewish voters make up about 10 to 15% of both of those state electorates, more so in New York. And so, just a heavy erosion for Joe Biden in the state. And I remember reading an article from, I think it was from earlier today, that showed that Democrats are potentially asking Joe Biden to pour funds in the state of New York so that it prevents them from losing races down ballot. I mean, that's just incredible, guys. Like, the Democrats are having to, I mean, this election is so one-sided. Democrats have to decide if they have to pour resources in deep blue New York. This is a state that Biden won by 23 points 4 years ago, and they're having to decide whether to allocate funds into the state. That is just remarkable. New Jersey, I have as a toss-up state. That one I have as a tilt Democratic state. My understanding is that you have New Jersey is pretty close as well. I have it at about 0.5 points for Joe Biden currently. Yeah, similar to New York, the state. We're just seeing heavy erosion of Democratic support for Joe Biden. The state is less white than average. It has a decent amount of Black, Asian, and Hispanic voters as well. And I'm more bullish on the state than you are. I know that you have it as like 1.5 or 2 points for Biden.
Yeah,
I
pretty
have it
much.
as a Democratic margin.
Mm.
Yeah, so absolutely, Trump is, and there are some Republican polls that do have Trump leading the state technically, but there are Republican polls, so you do take that with a grain of salt. But I do think that it is very competitive nonetheless, and I'm waiting for some more polls to come out of the state, so it should be pretty interesting to see that. New Hampshire, that state I have as lean for Trump at about 1.5 percentage points. Um, I used to, it's kind of funny because this state I used to be kind of less bullish on New Hampshire for Trump because it has, I think the state electorate's like 90, it's like mid 90s white in terms of percentage.
No, yeah, it's
And
pretty, yeah.
yeah, and it's very college educated. And so I'm thinking, oh, well, I don't know. Is Trump going to flip the state? Probably not. But as I started to, look into the crosstabs, I'm seeing, wait a minute, Trump is actually gaining a lot more with the white college educated than, expected. And the best pollster in the state of New Hampshire from 2020 has Trump +2 with third parties. And so I have it as 1.5 for Trump. That seems pretty realistic. This seems pretty fair. And so that's a big flip. I mean, Republicans have not won the state since back in 2000 under Bush, and so that would be a huge victory for Donald Trump. And then Maine at large, I have as a tilt margin for Trump. I have it just barely, like less than a half a point for Trump. There have been some polls showing Maine at large is, I mean, it's really competitive. If you examine the polling, it's really competitive. And it's very similar to New Hampshire. It has a lot of white voters. It's very college educated. It does have a tendency to swing. It's pretty elastic, and especially down ballot. Like they actually, those voters in Maine, they down ballot, they actually typically vote blue in the House. But at least Maine's second district has it swung for Trump in 2020 pretty substantially. But Maine at large, I do have tipping to Trump in this election currently. And so it looks like that finishes out the map. Looks like it.
Yeah, pretty much. That's basically there. And TriStar is in the chat. And TriStar is somebody who, at the beginning of the year, literally at the very beginning of the year, was telling me how Trump possibly could get over 400 electoral votes or get in the high 300s. And back then I was like, there's no way. But it seems like he probably may actually be somewhat correct this cycle, which is going to be pretty crazy if he actually was telling me about all this stuff way before. And TriStar, I hope you understand that, like, at the time, I wasn't looking at the data in the exact way that we are now in terms of looking at, like, the national popular vote lead and things like that. Because, yeah, you were right. Donald Trump leading by 6 points back in January of 2024 in the five-way aggregate was not normal. That probably would have ended up producing like a Trump +9, Trump +10 popular vote, which at that point probably would be enough to possibly flip Colorado. So you were actually pretty realistic in your analysis there, which is pretty interesting. I think for the likely Democrat states right now, I have Washington and Oregon in that column, just like Gold Crown Politics. I have Washington at about 10 points for Biden, and I have Oregon at about 8 points for Biden right now. I think the states are going to probably trend to the left a little bit just because I think that Trump is probably not going to gain as much with whites as he is with Hispanic and African Americans, and these states tend to have a more white population than usual. So that's why you're going to see those states probably still be in the higher likely category for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, excuse me. For Colorado, I actually have it at 6 points. This is my personal prediction, by the way, guys. My actual aggregate does show, something a little bit closer in Colorado as of right now. But I do think, based out of the polling that we have been getting, I mean, yes, the internals for Biden do show the race being pretty competitive. But there was a poll that came out the other day that, yes, it's a Democrat internal, but it still kind of has Biden up by 10 and it has Biden up by 6 in the state. And so I'm kind of iffy about it. I do expect it to actually kind of trend to the left by more than most people and even Gold Crown Politics think. So right now I have it as like a 5 to 6 point victory as of right now. I'm kind of, obviously I'm relying off the model for the most part to kind of get a guesstimate of where everything is, but I'm not going to like use it as the gold standard. I'm kind of gonna use it to kind of supplement my predictions, but this is roughly what I actually think is going to happen. Hawaii, in my opinion, is actually going to be under a 10-point victory for Joe Biden. The polling there, if we actually look, the latest polling, in the state of Hawaii, you guys are going to see it pulled up on my screen as of right now. The latest poll from the state actually has Biden up 8 points as of right now, which is quite interesting. We could see Biden's at 42% in the poll. We see Trump is at 34%. RFK gets around 8% in the poll. And Biden is narrowly ahead in that poll as of right now, and he won the state by way more than this. I mean, he won the state by 29 points last time around, and so pretty much that's why I think the state's actually going to be way closer. I think probably right now is 7 to 8 points is a pretty realistic projection there. I think Illinois is probably going to be around 8 or 9. I mean, we haven't gotten a lot of polling here for a little bit. The latest poll, I mean, literally has Biden up 9 points in the state. Other polling had Biden up way more in the state as of right now. So yes, I do think it is going to be closer, but I don't think it's going to be in a way, I don't think it's going to be under 5 points as of right now. I think it's probably going to be in the likely category for incumbent President Joe Biden. We also have the states of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware. I think those are going to be in the likely column for sure. Probably Connecticut is like 10 points, Delaware probably 7, Rhode Island's probably about 9 points as of right now. New York, I have it at the same thing as Gold Crown. I have it as a 6 point race. The latest poll does have Biden up 8 points. And when you look at the crosstabs and whatever, you see that Donald Trump is massively improving with Hispanic and African American voters. And something that I actually want to test out here really quick, I want to see if I could actually get this poll pulled up really quick from earlier this year, because there was a poll in the state of New York that actually did have the race pretty competitive, believe it or not. I wonder if I'm going to be able to find it. No, I think it's pretty much gone. But essentially what it was is that they basically had the city areas um they had them way closer. So like if you went here to like the Bronx and Richmond and all these kind of places, the shifts were like massive. I don't remember the exact shifts in every single county, but some of them were upwards of like 20 to 30 points in each county in the state of New York. And so, for example, let's say we shift all these by 25, right? If we were to shift those entire counties by 25, which was like the average shift in all of the cities in that poll, they actually polled each borough individually. If you were to shift all those by 25 points on average, you would get a 10-point win for Biden. And if you were to get the rest of the state, for example, let's say we got the rest of the state and we decided to move each county like 5 points to the right, for example, Gold Crown, you're seeing this, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
So essentially, let's say we go ahead and move this. Now, obviously, Donald Trump's going to benefit from gaining with African American voters, Hispanic voters, almost every single demographic. And he's also going to probably gain with whites in the state, too. I also think the white vote here is probably going to move more on average as well than the nationwide as a whole. And so when you go ahead and actually end up doing this, you're actually going to see that if you move all these counties 5 points to the right, let's say all these counties move by 5, you get a 7 point victory in the state of New York as of right now. 7.9 percentage points in the state of New York. And so that's not that far off from our 6 point estimation, because some of these rural counties could probably shift a little bit more than others. But right now, me and Gold Crown basically agree that we have the state at around 6 points for Joe Biden as of right now. In the state of North Carolina, we see the polling here has really narrowed up, but again, it's a lot of Democrat internals kind of pushing polls in the state of North Carolina. Me and him are pretty confident the state is going to be an over 10-point victory. Right now, I have the state at 12 points. I have Georgia at like 10 to 11. Right now, there's a Trump plus one poll, but it's a very liberal pollster out of the state. And so right now, I actually have the state as like a 9 to 10 point victory for Donald Trump in our forecast. For Arizona, I have Donald Trump actually winning it by 6 to 7 points. I'm kind of starting to get a little less bullish on Donald Trump winning Arizona by, crazy amounts. And the reason why is because of the fact that Donald Trump, the state's been trending to the left ever since, 2016. And so the problem with that for Trump is that if the trends in Maricopa continue, yes, I think he's going to win Maricopa. And what's quite interesting, believe it or not, we could do the math on this as well. If we go, for example, to Arizona, right, the latest poll from SoCal Research and Ready Go Politics has Maricopa as a 5 point win for Donald Trump in the state of Arizona. That enough is actually able to push the state. Let's say it ends up being R plus 5, right? Let's say that actually ends up being the case. So let's say it's R plus 5, right? That puts the state at a 4.5 percentage point victory for Donald Trump. And if we were to get every other county in the state of Arizona and actually shift it by maybe 2 to 3 points to the right, so let's literally get every single one and just shift it 2 to 3 points. It's literally it, just 3 points to the right. That ends up producing a 5.7 plus popular vote victory in the state of Arizona. And that's not even accounting for some of these redder districts or redder counties actually trending to the right as well, because the state of Arizona is not unanimously trending to the left. It's mainly just Maricopa. The rest of the state is actually trending to the right as a whole. For example, if you look at Graham County, this was a Trump plus 45 county in 2020. Back in 2016, it was only Trump plus 23. If we go to, for example, let's go to Navajo, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Trump plus 10 there. In 2016, here it's about Trump plus 8. So it kind of actually didn't really, it basically stagnated pretty much. I actually think it might have even trended a point, is like a half a point Republican or something. We actually see right here again, Greeley, Trump plus 24. Then in 2020, it's Trump plus 35. And I'm still expecting a lot of these rural counties to actually trend to the right. And so, again, I wouldn't be surprised to see Donald Trump do well in the state of Arizona. Yuma County, you had a 1 point win in 2016. Now in 2020, when he underperformed in Maricopa, Donald Trump was able to win Yuma County by 6 points. So the entire state is not necessarily trending to the right, but the Maricopa County is really messing it up for Republicans. And the Arizona polling is never that inaccurate. And so we see here Trump being ahead by, possibly, 6 points, 7 points here. You had those Democrat internals come out. You did have a plus 15 poll come out of the state not too long ago, which is kind of crazy. That is a little bit of a exaggeration, but that does actually put the state in the likely Republican column as of right now. I do think it's going to end up being around a 6 to 7 point victory, meaning that if Republicans lose the popular vote in the future, they will probably more than likely not win the state of Arizona anymore if they lose the popular. Sorry, guys, I'm still kind of sick. We see in the state of Nevada, I believe it's going to be a 10 to 11 point victory. I mean, again, it's all math, guys. If you go to Nevada and you go to Clark County and you shift this like even 5 points to the right, that literally basically gives Trump the state automatically. Washoe, if you shift that by 5 points, if that gets shifted by about 5 points to the right, if that gets shifted, Donald Trump wins it by 1.9. And then if you get all of these individual counties, let's say we basically got all of these counties, right, and shifted all these rural counties like 5 points to the right, if we were to do that, that produces a lean margin in the state for Donald Trump. And that's assuming Clark doesn't flip to Donald Trump. That's assuming Washoe is only a 2 point victory. These victories in these rural counties could be even bigger than this. And polling indicates that Donald Trump is probably going to win the state pretty heavily. And the Nevada polls, yes, tend to overestimate Republicans. But I feel like with even in 2022 in the midterms, Donald Trump, or at least Adam Laxalt, literally lost because of a snowstorm in an environment that was supposed to be more favorable for them. And they actually were still able to flip the governor's seat as well. And so I think that this state more than likely is going to be a 10 to 11 point victory. If you look at New York Times / Siena College, if you cross examine their polling in the state, they actually probably have it as like a 9 to 11 point victory when you kind of model it out. And so that's why I'm pretty confident it's going to be able to be a 9 to 11 point victory for Trump as of right now. And if we look at the Rust Belt, I think Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, these are all going to be pretty similar. I'd say Wisconsin maybe 7. Michigan is probably like about 6 points. And Pennsylvania, I actually think would be around 5 to 6 points. And what's pretty interesting for everybody to look at here is in the state of Pennsylvania, in the head-to-head matchup, Donald Trump is up by 5.3 percentage points, and RFK is technically not even confirmed to be on the Pennsylvania ballot as of right now, meaning that it would be more of a head-to-head matchup, and third-party candidates like Stein and West are really only going to draw from Biden. They are typically much more liberal, even more so than RFK, and so here's the thing, guys, the polling in Pennsylvania is also not that far off. We see in, for example, in 2020, it was pretty much spot on. If we go to 2016, you will also see that Clinton was up by 2.1, Trump ended up winning by 0.7. So it's like the polls are either spot on or they underestimate Trump. And I think with Donald Trump gaining with African American and Hispanic voters more than expected, I think they might underestimate him by a point or two in the state. And so that's where you're going to see that 5 to 6 point victory in the state of Pennsylvania essentially come out of. And so we can actually go here to the state of Nebraska second, or the district. We see that probably being a 3 point win for Donald Trump. That district is really leaning towards Trump right now. But yes, polling does show a mixed race, but I think if Donald Trump is really winning the popular vote by about 6 to 8 points, I really cannot see that actually being the case. Also, in the state of New Mexico, it's probably going to be a lean margin, 2 to 3 points for Donald Trump. Hispanic gains are really going to push the state further to the right as of right now. We also see in Minnesota, that state is probably going to be a 1 point victory for Donald Trump. Polling shows the race neck and neck, but polling has underestimated him there. The Israel Hamas conflict is not going to really help Biden there either. And even though his approval rating in Minnesota is actually one of the highest out of any of the states, it's actually one of his top 5 states in approval, he still probably won't be able to pull out enough support to win it. Virginia, I also think is going to go lean Republican as of right now, 1 to 2 points for Donald Trump as well. New Jersey, I have it as a 1 to 2 point victory for the incumbent president. New Hampshire comes in at 2 to 3 points for Donald Trump. And Maine at large, here's the interesting thing about Maine at large. When you actually look at polling in Maine at large, okay, they do not have it here, but what's interesting about Maine at large is that they actually have it to where you end up basically, the latest poll from 538 in the state, what they did is they basically simulated the ranked choice voting system there, which I honestly think is kind of dumb. But if you go to Maine, unfortunately, when you see the final round of the polling there, it does actually have Biden up in the final round. And so if they have ranked choice voting in a state that's typically been pretty Democrat, I actually think Biden still probably picks it off. As of right now, Donald Trump could make gains, but it really just depends on where all the dynamics go there. So this is my map, 345 for Donald Trump to 193 for Joe Biden. Gold Crown, what are you thinking about this so far?
Well, I definitely agree with your map. As I said, I have a very similar margin to you. My states are pretty similar. I have 347 in the Electoral College for Trump and 191 for Biden. The only difference being Maine at large. I do have tipping to Trump. I will say that is a really tough one. I want to say like a month ago, I was, really, I didn't think that Trump could flip it, but because he is making gains in the popular vote, and also the white college educated, because that group specifically is also looking more favorable to Trump than expected. I am more bullish on Maine at large. But I do agree. It is very possible that Biden could retain the state. Historically, it's been very blue. But yeah, that's the only difference in my map compared to yours.
And so right now what I actually did is I put up a poll about maybe 20 minutes ago now at this point, maybe 15 minutes ago, and had a lot of chat answer this. And so what's quite interesting is I put up a poll, who will be BP? And what's quite interesting is I left an other option available. 47% of the respondents of 117 voters in the live chat poll actually voted other. 47%. Vance got 23%, Rubio got 21, and Burgum got about 9. Now, right now I'm essentially going to ask chat, who do you think it's going to be? Because I can't like read off the top of the head and just be like, "Oh, I'm going to just put Carson and a few others on the list," cuz 47% for 47% other means that chat believes that it's going to be another person. I'm assuming it's Carson or DeSantis or somebody like that. But Gold Crown, just to give you a kind of a hypothetical, who do you think would probably give Donald Trump? Who do you think the best VP pick for Donald Trump would actually be in terms of expanding the Electoral College map, but also just being a good VP in general?
That's a pretty good question. That's the question that everyone's kind of thinking about. Trump's VP, his VP pick is coming up. I think, hmm, you know, I think in terms of like if he wants someone to expand the map as much as possible, if I were Trump, I would probably go with Marco Rubio. And the reason I say that is because Trump, if you look at it from an electoral perspective, if you're the Republican Party, you can make substantial gains with the Hispanics. I mean, Trump is already gaining with this voting bloc a lot, but if you pick a guy like Marco Rubio, you can expand even further, and that could potentially open up the map even further in a state like New York that has a lot of Hispanics. Trump is basically already sweeping the Sun Belt as it is, and a lot of Hispanic voters there. But I do think that if you're looking at it from, an electoral perspective, he would want to choose a guy like Rubio. He is more establishment, and so that would probably make him, less favorable as a VP. Trump is more populist, and I'm not sure exactly how much the base would like Rubio. But I do think in terms of electability, I would go with Rubio. I think it is kind of interesting because you could also make the argument that JD Vance of Ohio, would also be a good pick to kind of shore up the Rust Belt because if you think about it, the Rust Belt states are very white, and they're also older populations, and that is technically, if you look at the shifts from 2020, Trump is gaining the least with older and whiter voters. And so if you kind of want to lock up those states and basically ensure that those remain in the Republican column now and potentially going into 2028, you could also make the argument for Vance as well. I think that Vance would also be a really good VP selection as well. What about you? What do you think on point?
Honestly, I think the best one for Donald Trump would be Carson, in my opinion. I think Carson would provide a sort of contrast to the ticket. I think he would balance out Trump pretty well. I think he would handle Kamala just fine on the debate stage, to be honest. I think he would probably end up destroying her. I mean, it's not going to be that difficult. But I think that I don't know if Donald Trump is really sitting down looking like, okay, who's the best person to have eviscerate Kamala, because effectively, if he could get somebody to eviscerate her so bad that she can't even run in 28, you kind of kill two birds with one stone politically. That would be a pretty interesting thing. I don't know if he kind of has that mindset. If he does have that mindset, I'd say he should go with Vivek, to be honest. But if he's not really going for that and is kind of just looking at it through a normal lens, okay, who's going to help me get elected? Who could help me appeal to my base, or who's going to be loyal and stuff like that? I think that Carson would probably be that best choice, because Carson has been one to not really any say super, really not say anything anti-Trump. I mean, the top three contenders right now have literally said a bunch of stuff that's like anti-Trump before. And so, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Rubio or Vance were the nominee, especially Vance. I think if Vance was the nominee, it would be fine. If Burgum is the nominee, that one's a little weird to me. I don't really know how I would feel about that. Seeming less likely now, in my opinion, but I do think it is a little strange for him to pick uh a more establishment pick, especially since he's leading in the polls by this much. I think somebody more populist would definitely be a better pick for them. So I think a Vance or a Carson would be his best pick, but I think Carson would probably be his best pick because Donald Trump's already gained enough with Hispanic voters, to be honest. And so I think if he wants to really gain with the African American vote, I think Carson would be a good pick, because even Carson himself, I think, would actually appeal to both sides of all. He would appeal to all blocks of the African American community, because a lot of a lot of people try to say, oh, well, all blacks vote the same, but that's not really the case. The reason why African Americans are such a big voting bloc for the Democrats is because about 70% of them are actually women, black women, who end up voting in presidential elections, and those tend to skew very Democrat. It's the men that actually tend to be 70-30 Democrat Republican. I think somebody like a Ben Carson would be able to appeal to both groups, more specifically the black men. And I think that actually he would appeal very well to young black men, and that would help him a lot in like Atlanta, Detroit, Philadelphia, some places in New Jersey, New York State. Minnesota, Virginia. That would really expand the map for him on the east side of the nation. So I think Carson would honestly be the best pick for him as of right now. We did run a poll really quick. Do you approve Marco Rubio as VP? And if 54% said no and 45% said yes, I honestly thought it was going to be a lot worse. I'm going to do the same thing for Ben Carson as of right now. Do you approve of Ben Carson? What do you think about Ben Carson as a VP pick?
I think Ben Carson, you made some really good points. Yeah, definitely. For the black vote, black male voters certainly are not a monolith at all. It's definitely the black female vote that is heavily Democratic. I think Ben Carson, he's definitely a dark horse pick right now, but I definitely think that would be a pretty good selection. Definitely much better than Tim Scott, who's
Oh
more
yeah.
establishment. And but yeah, I mean Ben Carson, yeah, that would be really good. I think that he could help in a Rust Belt state like Michigan that has the highest or one of the well, both Michigan and Pennsylvania that have higher black voters, certainly more so than Wisconsin in the Rust Belt. But yeah, he'll also help in a state like Georgia, North Carolina. He'll help in the Sun Belt as well with those black voters. And yeah, I think that he would be he would be a really solid pick, to be honest, because he really contrasts Trump in terms of rhetoric. I mean, Trump is very just bombastic and really out there, but Carson is very just calm, cool, reserved, and he's just really quiet. It'd be kind of interesting to see it if he was chosen and debated Kamala. That would be kind of interesting debate between those two.
No, I think that would be pretty interesting to see Carson and Kamala Harris kind of go at it. I mean, to be honest, I don't think Kamala's going to be able to get the 28 nomination, especially if Biden loses re-election. It's really not common for a president to lose re-election and then for the VP to get the nomination the next time. I don't know if that's really happened before, but it's very uncommon for that to happen. That doesn't really happen too much, or even if at all, if it's actually even happened. And so that's kind of why I'm like, like a little. It's pretty interesting because you could probably beat Kamala with anybody, and so he's gonna have to obviously make the pick before the RNC convention, obviously. But I'm excited, guys. The VP debate could be as early as July 23rd. That was one of the dates that they floated for the debate for the vice presidential debate was July 23rd. And so we could literally have a debate between the candidates in essentially less than 2 weeks. And that would be really interesting. And the pick would essentially be on the 15th. And so by the time we get the pick, we could literally have the debate in a couple days. I also did see that they're trying to push back the nomination for Biden to like July 20 something, like something pretty early, like essentially right after the RNC, which honestly is a smart move for the Democrats because that would effectively probably maybe well, it depends on how bad or good the DNC goes, but essentially it would be pretty interesting to see uh that because that would maybe stifle the Republican, that would kind of stifle the RNC boost. However, there has been speculation that they are going to try to actually hold the DNC virtually because of, concerns of protesting due to Israel Hamas and stuff like that. And so that's pretty interesting. I think at that point maybe the DNC wouldn't really have a bump. What do you think about that, Gold Crown?
Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely think, it is kind of funny because, yeah, I mean, I've heard that the Democrats will have virtual DNC, and it's just, it's just remarkable. I mean, the Democrats are just so split right now between the more, like establishment portion of the party versus the further portion of the left wing. And, Democrats are just trying to find their identity right now between those two factions. And yeah, I mean, definitely, and I think going into the RNC, next week, I definitely think that's going to provide Trump and Republicans down ballot with a lot of momentum. I mean, you saw this back in 2016 when Trump made his VP pick with Pence. He gained about a point nationally, and it was kind of like a temporary boost in the polling data. But, I definitely think that it will add at least some temporary momentum to the campaign. And so I am excited to see that. I'm excited to see how much of a boost that gives Trump.
No, yeah, 100%. That would definitely be a pretty big that probably Digital Lee says the longer that Lester is sick, the more likely it will turn into a running joke. I mean, this cough has been lasting a couple days, which is interesting because usually it doesn't last that long. It's been like about 4 or 5 days since I've had this. So that's pretty interesting. Trump's play would be Tulsi 2028. They could run full bench. What do you mean by that, Matt? I'm kind of curious what you mean by that exactly. That's kind of an interesting take there. I ran the same poll for Ben Carson, and it's actually 51% no to 49% yes. I'm kind of surprised that chat doesn't approve of Ben Carson as VP a little bit more. That's pretty interesting. I thought it would have been like a overwhelmingly yes answer, but that's pretty interesting. Let me pull Vivek and see how that does. Now, going into the campaign, because of the RNC, because of the VP pick, how do you think Donald Trump's going to start kind of gaining possibly in the RCP data? What do you think is going to be happening over the next couple months?
Well, I definitely see over the next couple weeks and months following the RNC, I definitely see Trump gaining at least a point or two more nationally from here. We don't have a crystal ball; we can't tell exactly what's going to happen, but I definitely see Trump gaining a little bit just because of what I said. He's going to gain some momentum from the RNC. It's going to galvanize the base. Everyone's going to be really excited with his VP pick, whoever it is. Um, and I've said this many times before, but if you look historically, the first debate winners, so like winners of the first debate going back the past four election cycles, they've gained an average of 4 points nationally since or after their first debate. And Trump in RCP, he was up by about 3 points when the debate happened, and he's already gained two. Because he's at
Mhm.
plus 4.9 right now, so he's
Right.
gained 2 points, and if you combine that with all the momentum into going into the RNC, I definitely would expect him I'd expect to see a rise even further in the polling data. And so, I definitely see it. I definitely see it. But what do you think? Do you think that he's going to get a boost as well?
No, yeah, I 100% think he's probably going to end up getting a boost in the electoral college as well. That's kind of what I'm thinking is going to end up happening too. I think he's probably going to gain a little bit in the RCP aggregate. Guys, he's already leading by 5 in the five-way aggregate, which is already pretty nuts. Like that's a big I don't think people realize that is a big difference. Like it is a humongous difference when you have that actually in place. And so I think that's going to really spell a problem for the Democrats because they're really going to have to figure out they're really going to have to figure out what to do because if Trump gains even more in polling data, it's going to spell even more disaster for them going into the campaign. It's just going to be an absolute nightmare for them going forward. What do you what else do you kind of have to say about as of right now going into the end of the year? What are the big things that you think people should be looking out for in terms of election night as of right now? Like places or things to like really watch on election night?
Hmm. Well, I think it's kind of interesting going into this election, kind of unlike 2020 where COVID, we were in the middle of the pandemic. I think, for this election cycle, we're going to have less mail-in ballots because people, they just don't need them as much. And so there's going to be a lower percentage of mail-in ballots. And we all remember what happened, right? 2020, Trump was up really comfortably. He was leading in, pretty much all the swing states. I remember watching it. Virginia was like, Trump was actually ahead in Virginia, like on election night 2020. And then I remember
Yep.
just like, in the next hour, it just completely flipped for Biden because of all those mail-in ballots. And,
They actually
and,
called it. They
so
called it at
I
poll.
think,
They actually, before you continue, they actually called it at poll closings, which was a really big mistake because Trump led for quite a while to the point where it was actually almost unethical for them to even consider putting it in that column. They
yeah,
literally
yeah.
called it when
And,
the polls closed, which I think was a really bad call.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so I think heading into this election, I mean, I definitely would expect because both of us, have Trump up by just such a huge amount. I would expect him to have, a huge lead up front, and technically, I mean, in past election cycles, Trump typically, before like the California votes come in, because that's like the biggest basket of Democratic votes. So
Mm,
before those votes start coming in, Trump is typically like leading in the popular vote, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Trump is up by like double digits in the popular vote, at least before like those big that big basket of blue states or blue votes come in. And so
right.
that would be crazy, seeing Trump up by like 12 points in the popular vote before California. That would be pretty crazy.
No, yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I expect. And I think for this race really at large, I mean, I would be a little concerned if the popular vote is if he's only up by like, I don't know, 5 or 6 points before California. That would be kind of scary. But you know, uh, I mean, our election models are all based on data. They're all based on data. I mean, the polls, he's up by 5 points right now in the five-way RCP aggregate, and that
Right.
is just, I mean, even that's just a crazy amount. Like
Right.
no Republican candidate has even won the popular vote since Bush in '04. That's 20 years ago. And
Right.
so, and Trump isn't just leading, he's up by a huge amount, 5 points. That's a huge amount. I mean, that's literally what Biden won the popular vote by in 2020, 4.5, is it five? And so, yeah, it's just and I definitely expect that the polls will underestimate Trump again. I mean, you can say that it's not necessarily a guarantee. It's not a guarantee, but it's very likely. I mean, in 2016, the polls were very off in that year as well. And in
Right.
2020, the polls didn't get better, they got worse. And so, I do have a lot of people say to me that they think that the polls are going to get better or whatever. But I think I personally have the conviction that the polls are not going to improve by that much, if at all. If they do, it would only be like a point or so if you look at the aggregate. But yeah, I
Right.
think that the polls will massively underestimate Trump, and so Trump is up by a huge amount if you look at the five-way polling and historical polling bias as well.
Right, 100%. I think that's definitely where everything stands. I am going to be updating my previous election model as of right now after the stream, and I will be doing a new video on that as of like, pretty soon, to be honest. And on top of that, we are going to be finishing up that Virginia poll, so more than likely, possibly tomorrow, we could be doing a video on that. I still need to do a video on the Wisconsin poll that we did, which was pretty interesting because I'm actually going to pull this up for you guys really quick before we end the stream here. I'm not going to really go on for too much. Danny Fan 101 for €2. I believe it's €2. Opinions on, I don't know if that's euros or not. Opinions on Tulsi as VP. I mean, it's a little. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about her being a VP pick, to be honest. Mick Taniano for 3. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. And I think the last thing I am going to talk about here is mainly pulling up this Wisconsin model that we did for the previous poll in the state. We pulled back to 2020, like New York Times does. We got our samples for 2024. We adjusted it and did our final margins here. And when we model it out, Biden actually wins the state by 0.6 percentage points. Now, here's the problem. We basically almost got no rural voters to answer a poll. So even when we weighed the poll like a lot, it still didn't really it still provided a tied electorate. And what SoCal does is he essentially ends up he basically weighs back to the 2020 exit polls. And so when he's done weighing the poll, the 2020 sample basically ends up being pretty similar to what the actual sample was in the actual election anyway, because that's what he weighs the poll by. And so he's trying his best to try to get the poll to weigh correctly. And he does it based off of exit polls. He does it based off of demographic factors and stuff like that. But the 2020 sample always ends up looking fairly similar to that. And so when we actually model it out based on the old samples, we actually get a 0.64 percentage point victory for Biden in the state, almost exactly what it was in 2020. I actually just thought this was pretty interesting to share with you guys. Now, do I think that it's the actual poll shows Trump up by 1. Do I think that Trump's gonna lose the state right now? No, because he's leading by 5 nationally. The state's been trending to the right for the past couple of years. So I don't even think, with no question, I think the state is 100% going to Donald Trump. It's been trending for 2 cycles in a row. And the same candidate that happened under is now going to be on the ballot again, and the national environment is much more Republican this time. So I would find it very hard to believe that that is going to be the case, that the state's going to end up voting for Biden. But I thought I'd share you guys this modeling here. I am also going to be doing it for Virginia once the poll is complete. Sorry, guys. And guys, that is pretty much it for the stream. As of right now, if you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I hope you guys had a great time listening to us go back and forth on the stream. We will be doing more of these, upcoming to the election, starting post RNC. I will be streaming a lot more. Hopefully I'm not sick by then. Gold Crown, what anything else you have to say right now?
Not much. I think we covered pretty much a lot of stuff for this election, and I think I think the final thing I would say is, regardless of how much Trump is up, make sure to go out and vote, guys. We're not saying to not go out and vote. We're not saying that Trump is up by so much that you shouldn't vote. Make sure to go out and vote, guys. That's what we always want to make clear. Make sure to go out and vote, make your voices heard, and go out and deliver that Trump landslide for us. I want to make that point.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. I will see you guys in the next video.